This is interesting because on one hand, you first hear it and you're like, oh, obviously, Yankees are desperate for any sort of spice, any sort of offense, any sort of energy. Oh, it's with team control. That's great. Oh, they didn't really have to give up too many of their top prospects, although Agustín Ramirez, very, very fast riser. Another example of a guy who it's like you look up the numbers, you're like, wait a minute, who's this? He is very much in the top 100 mix, a catcher with very impressive numbers. Cerna, Ramirez, a little bit lower levels, but solid prospects as well. Go ahead.
I did have a scout text me that Agustín Ramirez has hands like trash can lids behind the plate.
Okay, well, right. Well, he ain't exactly known for this is not an Austin Hedges type. It is quite the opposite. But he has reached AAA at age 22, and dude rakes. So that's
Great.
the key piece, right? But Jazz, you're like, okay, great, oh, perfect. That's she should hit really well in Yankee Stadium, and then you pause and you're like, hold on a second, how exactly does this fit with the rest of the team? It doesn't really matter because he makes them better, but it does raise some serious questions. And after this happened, you gave me a call yesterday and you were like, hey, so like, what is happening next here? And we got a little bit of clarity for that today. He did make it in time for Sunday Night Baseball. He started in center field, but it sounds like Jazz Chisholm will be playing some third base, or at least attempting to learn some third base, and Gleyber Torres might be soon as well.
Jazz Chisholm nor Gleyber Torres have ever appeared at third base as professionals. Actually, can you double check if Gleyber played in the minors? But I know Jazz 100% has not, and neither of them have played in the big leagues. And that was my takeaway. And that is why I was a little bit confused initially. Let me explain. Yankees fans, you already know how this all works. Jazz comes in. He's going to play center field. Great. That makes sense. When Giancarlo Stanton comes back off the IL, he'll be the everyday DH. Judge and Soto will be in the corners. We don't have to watch Trent Grisham hit anymore, which is, probably a good thing. Infield stays the same. That would all make sense. However, Jason Dominguez is back. The Yankees' uber prospect is healthy and playing in AAA. When he comes up, it would be likely that he would slot into center field, right? Or at least somewhere in the outfield, because he is probably a better hitter than whoever the Yankees have in the lineup right now. That means that Jazz would then have to move into the infield, where he played for the Marlins, coming up the chain and for his first handful of years in the majors. However, he has only played second base and shortstop. Gleyber has been pretty good recently. He's certainly turning it on, and they're not moving Volpe off short. And that would mean third base, where DJ LeMahieu is collecting outs like it's a hobby on offense, not like Nolan Arenado.
Yeah.
And so I am surprised that the plan is Jazz go play third for the first time ever. Look, he's learned a new position before. It could totally work. They could make another trade for a third baseman. It's certainly a risk to hinge this most important season, where Juan Soto might just be like, I'll see you later. I'm taking the money, more money from someone else. This is a must-win year for the Yankees. And to just be like, yeah, you've never done this, go do it. Like,
yeah,
weird and ballsy, and I think I kind of like it.
If it is Jazz, for sure, I think it's related to my acquire athletes monologue that I had recently, which is just like, there are some players where you can just be like, hey, go figure it out. And Jazz probably qualifies as that, as someone who learned center field in the big leagues. Gleyber actually has played third in the minors, in AAA and in AA, which I did not know about. I think 7 or 8 games in 17 and 18. But
so he's Brooks Robinson.
That was 6 years ago, right? So there's at least some precedent there, but a lot has changed since then. So I don't.
Gleyber certainly is built like a third baseman.
Yeah. Yes. And I think, and honestly, just knowing that, I feel like it's more likely we'll see him there than Jazz.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think, again, at the same time, it is quite a bet, and there are definitely ways that it can go wrong. And at the very least, we know they are deciding, like LeMahieu, it ain't happening. It probably means less playing time for Verdugo, all of those things, especially when Stanton is back and if Dominguez is coming up. it is an urgent move that forces other very interesting decisions. And that is why this move is so fun. But also it's a thing that, listen, it's not just for this year, right? It is saying that like Jazz is going to be a part of our future in some combination of these positions. And I think that also says a lot as well.
It forces other interesting decisions, including nothing. If they don't do anything else, that's fascinating because then Jazz at third is the plan. Let's quickly talk about Jazz, the player, for a second. This year, he's been about a league average hitter. He offers slightly below average center field defense, but is like, he's a center fielder. He can play center field. We have really no idea what he is right now as an infielder because we haven't seen him do it every day for a couple of years. He makes the Yankees better. He is one of the best 9 hitters on the New York Yankees right now, in my opinion. That is really not up for debate, I think, right? Like this offense has just been so blah that like he is good enough to be there, right? Let's talk about Jazz Chisholm, the person. I had a thread about this on Twitter. I think that a lot of the conversations about character concerns related to him are very much overblown and have something to do with baseball's inability to kind of onboard and make brash, outgoing black athletes comfortable in the sport. I also think that Jazz has certainly made missteps in his career. Calling out Miguel Rojas on a podcast for no reason, in my opinion, was just not something he needed to do. He has rubbed people the wrong way. Some of that's been him. Some of that's been the culture. I would say a lot more of that has been the culture of the game than him. I think he's going to be fine in New York. Okay. I think it is not going to be an issue at all. The proportion of conversation about Jazz as a character compared to what he actually is completely out of whack and overblown. There are much bigger jerks playing every day in the game in rooms that you never, ever hear about. And I just think that if we want to talk about like outgoing people, like they have Stroman and Verdugo, and yes, neither of them have like been outstanding on the field, but we have not had a Marcus Stroman, Alex Verdugo bust up in the Yankees locker room. I don't think it's going to be a problem. I'm excited to see Jazz Chisholm on the biggest stage in baseball. However, he needs to do the thing. There has been a gap between Jazz Chisholm, the idea, and Jazz Chisholm, the performer. Some of that has been due to injuries, but a lot of that is he has been kind of mid over the last 2 seasons. He was an all-star in 22 and then missed the second half with an injury. He is the worst player ever on the cover of MLB The Show. Right? Like that is a wonky way to describe it. Okay.
Yeah.
But
Javier Baez has done his best to
more on him later.
Undo what he had accomplished beforehand, but sure, yes, that is a way to look
You get my
at it.
point. You get my point. And I just that's so all that understood. He is still outrageously good and outrageously talented and like is only 26 and could really become something in New York if this goes well. Any other thoughts on Jazz?
Yeah, I mean, that's what is, I think, most interesting to me, is he has already transcended, whether you like him or not, whether his numbers deserve it or not, he has transcended the market that he's played in to get the honor of being, that is a real decision to put a player like him on MLB The Show in a positive and exciting way, but it says a lot about how far he had come, how much he had successfully marketed himself and made people that the game at San Diego studios, and they decide this is someone that we believe people want to buy the game because of it and the trajectory that we believe he was on, right? I think they thought we were getting in early here, and partially because of injury and partially because, again, we just haven't seen it yet. We haven't quite seen it. This year, Jazz has been healthy. We have seen Jazz be on the field every day, right? And even with that, you know, it's a 730 OPS. Now, he's been a lot better on the road than at home. He's been on one of the worst teams in baseball, and that's what's most exciting. What does it look like when Jazz is now playing for a team where it matters all the time, in a ballpark that fits him better? That's where it's not hard to imagine his game finally elevating to the best version of himself.
If you are going to work every day for a company as crappy and disorganized as the Miami Marlins, would you be doing your best job at work all the time? Not me. I wouldn't be. Maybe that says I'm a bad person. People should be grinding it out no matter where they are. But like, that is an understandable dynamic. And the last thing I want to say, we have spent time with Jazz in the Bahamas. And I think that experience gave us a really interesting understanding of him as a person, like where he comes from in his background in baseball. He did not grow up in the American baseball culture. Like the established norms that exist in our game were not something that he was necessarily around all the time until he went to high school in Florida. Right. And so none of this is abnormal. Like he is the person he wants to be. And I really respect that aspect of him a lot, because for him to continue to be that in the face of a lot of people telling him to be something else is very impressive. That being said, don't go on podcasting and trash your ex-captain. Just probably not good optics.
Yeah. But here's the other thing. Jazz ain't going to change, man.
He's not. Do not.
He's not. No, I'm not saying whether I don't want him to. Like, if you think, oh, he'll tone it down in New York, I really don't think so. I really don't think so.
I agree.
And I think that's great. It's great for us.